Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I am so excited because I get to introduce you to the wonderful Reverend Kristie Figueredo. I had to write down how to pronounce her last name because we've been talking forever and I keep making it mush. So I apologize if I didn't get it right. Kristie, I'm glad you're here with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you are more than welcome. Kristie is a master grief coach, and she has her first number one assistant with her there. She is also working really hard to become a recovery support specialist. Kristie, I'd like to ask you, tell us a little about you and what prompted you to want to become a master grief coach.
Well, in October 2020, my son passed away in my arms from a fentanyl overdose. I had tried everything that I was told to do, which was, kick him out, throw him out, don't let him back in. I did that. I also called the police on him and had thrown in jail for stealing my car and did all these things. And he just kept going back out. And I realized at the end that, harm reduction was a much better way to go because that's who he was. He was not going to get sober. He had a lot of issues and wasn't willing to work on them. I took him to psychiatrists and psychologists and he would lie to them or he'd come there stoned out of his mind. And
He had his own
there,
journey.
yeah, so I let him be who he was and I loved him in spite of it. And he knew I loved him. There was a moment when he said to me, Mom, why am I yelling at you? I learned how to talk to him.
Good.
And I learned how that when he was throwing one of his fits to just walk away, go outside, sit in the car, take a drive, and then come back, ask him if we were finished yet. And I learned that what he was going through is not what I was going through. Um, and that I should love him in spite of himself.
Beautiful.
So I let him know how much I loved him. And even when he was using, when he would leave the house, he would say, Mom, I love you. And if he forgot, he would call me from the car. So we got to that point, but he could not stop using. He just wouldn't. And so I decided that when I lost him, it was devastating. And there were so many people that said the wrong things to me or just didn't show up. And a lot of people used the COVID excuse. There were a few people that brought me food. There were a few people who were here for me. But after a couple of weeks, there was nobody. And so I was alone for 4 months. And my job luckily had paid me for 4 months, full pay. I was lucky there. And so I started taking the reins and just decided that I was going to reinvent myself. And I started to do meditation every day. So what I learned was that, you have, and it's kind of what I did when I got sober. I've been sober 35 years. So what I did was I know that we have chemicals in our body. And the chemicals, if we stick with the chemicals in our body that tell us to continue to grieve, we're going to continue to grieve. So I started doing things that changed my thought perception, which in turn changes the chemicals in my system. And the things that worked for me were working out 10 minutes a day, meditating 10 minutes a day, reading something inspirational 10 minutes a day. And then I just added on to that and added on to that and added on to that. And pretty soon, my body, you hold all your emotions in your body. And pretty soon your body um, begins to recognize that the chemicals are changing. And so you're not stuck in that grief anymore.
So, what made you decide that you wanted to take that step from griever who is healing her own heart to being someone who could support others as a master grief coach, because that's a major step. It's really profound. Most of us, I've never talked to anyone who didn't find it very healing for themselves personally, but it's still a commitment. So what prompted you to take that step to decide, I want to become a certified coach?
Helping others helps me.
Beautiful.
And the more I teach others, the more I learn. And coaching is about not telling somebody what to do. It's about learning from each other.
And isn't that the nutshell? Because it's not my job or your job to tell somebody you have to do this, you have to do that. It's supporting them to find their own path. And that's something you do very, very well, isn't it? So how have you seen this process support you in your own grief healing? And how do you see yourself sharing that with others?
Well, at this point right now, I'm doing a lot of recovery research. And to be honest with you, people who are starting out in recovery, they're grieving the loss of their drug use because that's like their best friend. They have an emotion, they just stuff it. And so I've been working with people in hospitals and institutions to help them, realize that there's better things in life and that they too can recover because I can recover. So why can't they recover? And I let them know that it's the grief and in that craving only lasts for a few minutes. It's just like grief. If we don't hold on to it, it only lasts for a few minutes, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, but
90
we find
seconds.
something else to do. Yeah, it only lasts for a short time. And if we find something else to do that's productive, it will stop. It'll come back. I still grieve my son. Something will happen, a song will play, the tears will run. But see, I allow my tears to run. I allow to feel it without drugs, without alcohol. I don't stuff my feelings because I'm not going to get through it. And now I can actually feel my son around me sometimes. I find feathers, I find dimes, I find all kinds of stuff that, wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't see if I was all stuffed up with grief. I wouldn't see it. I've seen things in the sky. I've seen clouds in the sky. I've seen him walk across his room on one of my cameras. It's amazing what we miss when we're all stuck inside ourselves.
So what I hear from you is that you're still bringing Alex with you in a very powerful, strong way, and that you're helping others to feel that connection and trust that connection with their people as well. So are you focused primarily on people who are in recovery or not? And it doesn't have to be a hard and fast. I'm just curious, who might come to you? Who might be someone who says, you know what? That's the coach for me.
I think anybody who's suffering spiritually, since I'm a reverend in metaphysics, I can help with this whoever's suffering spiritually. And a lot of times when we are suffering, it is spiritually. So, whether it be using drugs and alcohol, whether it's using grief, whether it's being stuck in a spot that you can't move forward, fear, faith, not fear, right? It's really
They
important
walk hand
to,
in hand. I see them as hand in hand.
yeah. So it's just important that, you have someone to talk to and you can trust that person. And because I'm a reverend, I can't say anything to anybody.
But I know you wouldn't anyway. And isn't that something that's really important for our clients to know, that this is a really, I think, a sacred relationship, that it matters,
Yes.
that we are there to support them in finding the tools and the steps that help them. I always use the phrase through grief into healing, that we walk arm in arm. And I hear you doing that. I'm kind of curious. Um, is there anything that you discovered or reinforced when we were going through the certification program that was unexpected?
I think knowing that you were always there for me made it knowing, and I haven't reached out to you in a while, but I know that you were always there for me, and it made it knowing that I could always reach out to you. I had somebody to talk to that had been where I had been. And the other thing I think is that I'm more powerful with the universe behind me than I ever thought possible.
Beautifully expressed. And what you just said, I think, is really important. Every coach decides how they work with their clients. But I think, in my experience, and when I hear from people, it's so important to know that there's going to be another conversation, that you are there for them. And I know you always are, that you're there for them. And everybody decides how that shows up and how that communication is. But it's really, really powerful. So I know we're coming to the end of this interview, and I look forward to doing many more with you, because I know you've got so much more to share with people that's really deeply healing, and that matters so much. I guess I just wanted people to get to meet you a little bit and know you a little bit. Before we wrap up, Kristie, what would you like to say to people who have got their heart broken, they've lost someone they love? What would you like to say to them?
Remember to take care of yourself first. It's so important for self-care. I know it's hard to get out of bed. I know it's hard to take a shower. I know it's hard to do those things, but it'll come around. And if you don't do it, don't beat yourself up for it. Nobody's counting it. And, there's still days that I go and I don't take a shower. Maybe, I don't work during the weekend. So last night I took a shower, and I may not take one tonight, but who's counting, right? Just take care of yourself. Make sure you eat, make sure you, keep yourself clean as much as you can, and try to get rest.
Beautifully said. And what I hear in that little bit that you just shared is what I know from you from the times we've talked since I've met you, is set this goal because it matters, because you matter, but give yourself grace at the same time that we're doing the best we can. And I've always seen that that's the way you show up, with the highest of standards, but with incredible compassion for others. And I think that makes all the difference.
Sandy, I really love you, and I appreciate you being in my life.
Kristie, I love you, and I'm so glad you're in my life. And I know so many people are going to benefit from getting to know you. So I hope all of you that are watching this know that Kristie is an excellent coach. I highly am so grateful and happy to recommend her, not only because I certified her, because I have come to know her, and that's what matters. I've come to know her heart, and I understand the way she coaches, and that's from the place of support, and that's a compassionate support, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you're interested in stepping into your life purpose as a grief coach, as a master grief coach, let me know. My information is below, because Kristie, tell me if you agree or not, I think the most healing thing I've ever done for myself is to reach out for others.
Yep, me too.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining me, Kristie. I look forward to many more conversations with you. For everybody listening, thank you for joining us. Have an amazing day. Namaste.
Thank you.